Now, my Harry mate, and welcome. Thank you all for coming along tonight on this, well, it was a lovely, sunny, yet very windy day here in Wellington today. But I am going to talk tonight about the upcoming update to the Kiwi collection, which is coming out very soon because, somewhat horrifyingly, it's December on Sunday. So I think everybody's kind of thinking, where did that come from? But one of the things that will come out of that, of course, is the Kiwi collection update. So I'm going to just share my screen. Kiwi collection is our gateway to all the records that our members have been collecting over many decades. And December means we're doing another update. And the 2024 update is going to take the total record number up to 16 million. So that's quite a milestone that we have that many. And we will be up to 122,000 images. So coming up is going to be 261,000 new records. What have we got in them? Well, let's start with what we call the creep records. Now, I'm going to come back to this picture later because I want to see what people think of it, because we need to find a cute picture for creeping, and it's very hard to get away from plants. But we'll discuss that later. So we have 110,000 creep records. So what are the creep records? They are the records that are now over 100 years old. So we collect a lot of information, for now. We collect records for now, for into the future. And of course, we've also been collecting those records over a period of time. So we have privacy conditions that we have to adhere to. And now that the records are over 100 years, there are now more that you will be able to find. And of course, for school records, we only have a 95-year embargo because it assumes when you start school, you are 5. Now, I'm just going to point out for the record that we have a blanket 95-year record, a 95-year embargo on the school records, regardless of how old the child is when they started at that school, because not all the school records have a date of birth on them. And so we have quite a lot of school records, and it would just be too difficult to kind of change it to date of birth when we don't necessarily have that information. So we start it from the date they started school. So that means that there may be more records that you didn't realize were out there that are now available in the schools. In those records, so there's going to be 17,200 more entries for the certificates collection. So that's not 17,000 more certificates, it's more the entries, and we will have, a number of entries for each certificate because we index the whole certificate. We have 32,900 new school records, and those are just the student records. There's also going to be over 25,000 parent records. So if you've got children that were at school in the sort of late 1920s, they're now going to be available for you to find. The sort of last one since we did the last creep update. And of course, there are more. I've only just highlighted the big collections, but there are lots of little collections where the creep applies to them as well, and they will, of course, be more available. We also have 151,000 new records, 5,000 new obituaries, 7,800 funeral service sheets, 8,700 new 20-mins records, so 20-mins is the funeral director, 11,000 jury list entries, because we are making quite a lot of effort to find census substitute records, so that also leads into the next one. The 26,000 New Zealand bios collection, so this is maybe current information, so this is just basically any piece of paper that we've been given that has information and we've indexed, it goes into the bios collection. So that's quite a lot of new entries in that one. But we've also added 45,700 government employee records. So there's a ever increasing number of records that will help you track down your family if they work for the government. And again, there is more. So that's just the big numbers. There are lots of other little collections. We also have 7 new record sets, and I'm just going to go through them quickly. We have the Air Force newsletters, and they come with the images, so that's great. Typical cemeteries, I think our friend Christine Clement has been busy. Military service people from Christchurch. Mining deaths, So, of course, there's bound to be plenty of those around the place, unfortunately. Bay of Plenty Births, Petticoat Pioneers, so that's an index from a book, I believe. And lastly, an index to Waikato Militia. So all new interesting things that might give you something new for your family. Now, remembering, of course, there are 3 levels of access for the Kiwi collection. Subscriber, if you're just an NZSG member, you get a number, and public. And the updated numbers on those are 16 million, which I've already mentioned, to subscribers, 4.5 million to members, and 1.5 million to the public. So there's quite a lot in there, and there's quite a lot you can view even if you don't subscribe to the Kiwi collection. But most of the ones I've already mentioned, you will need to be subscribed to access. If you want to find out more about what's on the Kiwi collection, we will be putting up the updated spreadsheet of what's in there once the update goes live. Go to genealogy.org.nz/Kiwi and it will tell you all about it. If you want to buy it, you need to go into the shop and look at subscription products. Are there any questions? I rattled through that at a rate of knots. Anything anybody would like to ask about? Anything you'd like to add, Melanie?
So one of the things that people don't realise is that when we do the updates every 6 months, we add more and more records, which is what Sarah's just been talking about, the creep records. So a lot of members subscribe to Kiwi for maybe a year and they search all their names and they think, oh yeah, cool, I've got everything I want. But they don't realise that those records and those names keep getting added to all the time. Every 6 months we add.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's well worth it.
Yeah. I mean, if we're adding tens of thousands of creep records each update, it means that people who are having issues with the more recent families are more likely to find something that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Because of course, some people can't get past their parents or their grandparents, and whereas others are back off to Adam and Eve. So it's really, you won't know until you go and have a look.
And sorry, I'm just going to
Yep.
say this because I have to say it, but subscribing to the Kiwi collection is less than $1 a week. And, over a year, it's less than $1 a week, and you have access to an amazing amount of records. Well, 16 million records, obviously,
Yeah.
Can you show an example of what school records like? I've accessed the British ones, well, one for Lancashire. I just want to see how it compares with the British record.
So when you look at, while Sarah's bringing up an example, when you look at the school records, it generally gives the date of birth of the child. It gives the name of the parent or guardian, and it gives an address. And so one of the most amazing things about school records is it also records when they've moved from one school to another. So you're able to trace families moving from one area to another, from one school to another, but you can confirm that that's actually your family based on the date of birth or the what's the word, the accession record. No, when they register, that's what I'm thinking of, the register record that they, the school records are a hugely untapped resource for finding people moving around the country.
Yeah, especially if you have family that are, say, not British, and so they're not necessarily on the electoral roll. So I've put in my great-grandmother school record. So this is the first one of her. So the school, she was in Christchurch, so it's Woolston School in Christchurch. It says what date she was admitted, and it says she's 4 years and 3 months, which is the reason why we can't put in, we can't chop it off by birth date, because of course this is the classic record of there being no actual birth date, just a bit of maths. And it says she lives on Ferry Road, so it's not particularly detailed of which bit of Ferry Road, but for in Greta's case, it's quite interesting because you can see there's 4 records here for her. She moves. There's another record from Wolston showing that she goes to Phillipstown, and then a third one where she's at Phillipstown, and so starts and finishes, and has her father in there, and says that she's her previous school was Lower End, and then of course we have the one where she's come from Phillipstown and goes to West Christchurch Girls High School. So this, for an area which has been done quite extensively, like Canterbury has been, you can see a child moving through schools, and they moved a couple of times as her father went bankrupt. So it's been interesting to sort of see with her and her 8 siblings where they were at particular points in time and where they said they lived. So that's what they look like in there. I don't actually know what
you see the original handwriting then.
No, because we didn't have that sort of arrangement with the Ministry of Education. Most of the school records remain with the schools, so we basically transcribed what they had. But you will then find the school, and then you can have the exact details to see if they still have the records. I do know that one of the collections here in Wellington was very useful because the school had a fire and lost all their records, and so we were able to give them a copy back of their records. But no, it hasn't been done that we have the images of them.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I add something to that, Sarah?
Yeah, sure.
The latest school records are all being digitally scanned. That's the new protocol for school records. So the original images at some point in the future, obviously 95 years, will be available to members.
Yeah. So, it is important we do keep collecting current information, because in 100 years' time, people are going to want to know about us and our children and grandchildren and what we were getting up to. And while we hope to have left some information about ourselves, as well as, the family that precedes us, they might want to go looking to see what else they can find that we didn't remember was out there. And it should be quite interesting in the future because there's a lot less written records, paper records. So we're in the golden era, she says. Hello, Di.
I just want to add that some of the school records will be held in the museums or that kind of thing, or in libraries and stuff. Like the Southland records are actually kept in the Invercargill City Library. In Dunedin, you'll find for Otago, they're actually kept at the Hocken Library. So you can go and have a look at them there. But again, in the Hocken Library, they have them all in books for you just to browse through, but they are only transcriptions. You can actually, with them, email them, and they will actually scan and email back the relevant information they find, and they do not charge.
That's good to know.
And they do a lot. I actually get death notices out of the newspaper and that kind of thing. If I find someone, especially the main newspapers like the Otago Daily and the Southland Times, even ones Christchurch Press, New Zealand Herald, that kind of thing, they actually have them on microfilm, and I actually give them a list of maybe about 10 at a time, and within a couple of weeks I usually have what they can find out of the films. So they're really good, and they do not charge for doing that. So whenever we're home, I always go in and give them a donation, And if it's there around like Christmas time or something, there's always a box of chocks because they appreciate all the work that they do for me.
Yes.
So that you may find is your some of your library archives may have the information.
Yeah. I mean, I do know I put up on Facebook a photo of my gran. She was Dux of Timaru Girls High School back in 1923, I think off the top of my head, might have been 22. There's a photo of her with a bunch of school friends, all looking really happy and laughing at a really sort of candid moment. And I put it up to say, anybody know any of these schoolgirls? Didn't get any response on the schoolgirls, but I did have the Timaru Girls High School archivist get in touch and say, oh, I can find out some, I can go through our records about your gran. Turns out not only was she good at maths, which I already knew because I had a book that she won as a maths prize, but she's also so good at swimming. And I'm wondering where that disappeared to in the family. But yeah, she sent me like a full transcript of all the prizes because she was a girly swat. She went to university, which for the 1920s was not the norm for girls, although she came out the other end as a school teacher, so she was living the female stereotype for the age. You're either a teacher or a nurse. So yeah, no, that's just fascinating, what is out there that you might not know. But of course, looking on the Kiwi collection gives you that first step of knowing actually which school did they go to. And for some families, finding them in other records might be really hard, but after 1877, the kids had to go to school, so they will be on a school record somewhere.
And do the school records actually show when they are still at the one school, but they change address? Or is it just the initial address when they were first enrolled?
Well, the thing is, what we have are the admissions progressions and withdrawals. So they're when kids go into the school, when they move up to the next school, or where they come out of the school. So it doesn't kind of track the in-between times necessarily. The only actual school register I've ever seen is the Akaroa school that my great-granddad, now Greta's husband, went to. And while there was a big book of sort of attendance, ticking off which days they'd actually attended, there wasn't really that much information on the family. I suppose they were, most interested in them arriving and coming to school. But it's also, if you look at that, you can find, I noticed, who was I looking at? One member of my family, they came out of school for like 4 months and then went back into the same school. So it was, where did they go in that time? Was he sick? Did they go away on a big holiday? What happened during those months? So, you might find little anomalies like that spark your curiosity and keep you going.
Sometimes children, especially younger children, were sent away to family if there was an illness in the family or if there was a newborn baby and they had there's too many children to be looked after. So I found my grandmother's sister in a different school to what I expected her to, but it was only for a short time. And, and I just think that's because there was a new baby coming along and there's too much work to be done.
Yeah. Well, I haven't actually found him in another school yet, so I'll have a look. But yeah, I'm going to have to. I haven't been through the school records in a while, so I must get in and have a look because there'll be a couple years of creep and finding various family members. But I mean, I found it useful also. Like my great grandmother Greta, her husband Alf worked in the post office, so they got posted around the place. And you can kind of get the exact time of when they moved. Like he was posted to Invercargill. I'm not actually ever sure they went to Invercargill. I think they got as far as Dunedin because my great aunt went to school there. but maybe after she went to high school and back in Timaru boarding, they moved down there. So it's sort of, yeah. it's an interesting way to follow the family around. Because
I was just going to say the New Zealand Gazettes may help there, because they actually listed a lot of the government appointments and where they move from place to place. And also the newspapers often said, when people were moving to places too.
Yeah, no, the Gazettes we have the database for the Gazettes, so that was good. We even have some issues that nobody else has, which is even better.
Oh wow!
Some of the really early ones, yeah. And we have the searchable database, which is which disappeared off the internet. In terms of being freely available, there's that. We have the LexisNexis one, but yeah, there's certainly a lot. And I know that Melanie's spoken about, they've done a big push for the Kiwi collection to find these census substitute records. So school records are a great example of that. But things like the jury lists and the government employee records are also good ways of just figuring out where your family were. Maybe who they worked for, just where they were. Of course, to be on a juror list, generally speaking, you had to be British. So, but, thinking about people who came here that weren't naturalized, sorts of other records to find people. Thank you all. And those I don't see in the meantime, have a good Christmas. We look forward to seeing you again next year.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.